Well, good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing good. I would say it's good to see you, but I don't get to see you on this. But it's good to be with you. Hope everyone did all right. The storms last night didn't shake anyone up too bad. I got to thinking during the storms. Storms are a touchy subject around our house. They don't bother me as bad, but really they don't bother me at all. But Sherry doesn't like them, and the kids don't like them, and maybe that's an area I struggle with sometimes is being compassionate during the storms and things. Cause I can sleep right through them. It's when I hear them come, it's like, hey, this is some good sleeping weather here. But last night, as it was kind of thundering and the wind was picking up and things, I really got to thinking about Jesus in the boat with the disciples, and we find that in Mark chapter 4, and I'm going to read verse 35 through 41. It says that same day when the evening came, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And when they had sent the crowd away, they took him in the boat just as he was. There were also other little boats with him. A great windstorm arose, and the waves splashed into the boat so that it was now filling the boat. He was in the stern asleep on a pillow. They woke him and said, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" He rose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." Then the wind ceased and there was a great calm. He said to them, "Why are you so fearful? How is that you have no faith?" They feared greatly and said to one another, "What kind of man is he that even the wind and the sea obey him?" I began thinking about that last night. Just Jesus in that boat saying to the storm, "Peace, be still." I don't. When I think about that, when I try to picture that account, him doing this, I don't picture him, shouting, maybe getting louder than the wind so that they would hear him. But I don't picture him being really in a tizzy, really uptight, frantic, or anything like that. I picture him just standing and saying, "Peace, be still." And I began to think about that example that he set there. You see, Jesus he knew who the Father was, obviously. I mean, Jesus was God in man form, obviously, but he was setting an example for us, for the disciples that day, that in the midst of a chaotic storm, we can be peaceful in God. He was peaceful then. He brought peace. It says that as soon as he said, "Peace, be still," it says, then the wind ceased and there was a great calm. Everything just ceased there. He didn't get worked up. How often do we do that? I can. My wife would probably tell you I can be the world's worst when a situation comes up that really pushes me out of my element and things change and are different. I can get myself worked up and just kind of get frantic, and I don't want to deal with it anymore. At that point. But Jesus here, he's asleep. He's resting. Obviously, he's been ministering. It's drained him. He's asleep in the boat. It says the boat is filling with water. To have that peace there, and then Jesus wakes up and just says, "Peace, be still." He doesn't get frantic. We need to learn from that in our chaotic times. How often do we just get frantic? How often do we take it out on I'm preaching to the choir, to myself here, take it out on our spouse or our children? We just get frantic, and we kind of just start throwing a fit because things ain't the way we want them to be. But even this morning, as I was reading through this, I began to think about how this storm had come, and Jesus was in the boat with them. They're in the midst of a storm going on around them. The winds are blowing, the waves are beating against this boat so hard that the boat is actually filling with water. Jesus is with them. He was in their midst. He never left them. He was right there with them. How often do we tend to think in those storms that Jesus isn't with us? God, why did you leave me? Why did you leave me to go through this? We need to remember that God's with us. He said, "I'll never leave you or forsake you." God's with us, but sometimes he lets us go through these things so that we can learn. They were going through a storm, but I believe Jesus was allowing them to endure the storm a little bit to teach them. He was there with them the whole time. He was overseeing. He wasn't going to let them die in that moment. He was there with them. But when they woke him up, he calmed the storm. But look at what he said to them. It says he said to them, "Why are you so fearful? How is that you have no faith?" it's through our hard times that God builds our faith. And I believe God is with us all the time. We've all heard the poem Footprints, and one section of the poem there, the person asked Jesus, well, how come there was only one set of footprints? Why'd you leave me? And Jesus says, listen, I didn't leave you at that point. I carried you at that point. There's some times when we think that God is leaving us, but really he's carrying us through it. Sometimes these storms, he's carrying us through it, teaching us lessons as we go through it. He was teaching them that, listen, I'm right here. You don't have to be fearful. Even in his demeanor, when he stood up and calmed the storm, I believe he was teaching them a lesson in their demeanor and whenever they face storms in life and these circumstances of how to react to those storms. We need to learn from that. Remember that the storms of life, the storms you may be going through right now, Jesus is there. He's not left you. He's not going to forsake you. He's not going to let you drown. Remember, whenever in another account, whenever Peter steps out on the water, he didn't let him drown. He called him out. The storm was raging. The waves began to crash against him. Peter got distracted, started sinking. But when Peter called out to him, Jesus lifted him up out of the water. When the disciples went to him in the stern of the boat and said, wait, do you not care that we're perishing? He woke up. He calmed the storm. But he taught them lessons to it. Understand, the storms of our lives are for lessons for us. God is using those. He's working all things out for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. He's teaching us. We need to learn from his demeanor, from his loving attitude. But not only that, we need to realize he never left us. In that storm, he never left us. He's using those storms to carry us where he wants us to be. He's using it to form us into who he wants us to be when we get there. You see, when on the other side of the sea here, as they went through this storm and just calmed this storm for them, they hit land. And when they hit land, there was a man who was possessed by demons that came running out to them. And many people feared this man. They had bound him. He had broke the chains. They had tried to subdue him, but he always broke free. They were scared of him. And so Jesus knew that on the other side of the sea, they were going to encounter this man. He knew that before they ever entered into the storm. So he was building during this storm, as he was taking them where he needed them to be, he was building their faith for when they got to the other side and met up with this man so that they would have faith. Listen, he calmed a storm. What's to say he can't calm this man? It's a different type of storm, but what's to say that Jesus can't? So he was putting them in a situation, building them up here so that when they face this next situation, they were ready for it. Remember that God's going to allow you to go through storms. Sometimes, just like this one, God's going to send you through a storm. Understand that. God sent them. It says the same day when the evening came, he said to them, let us go cross. Let us go cross to the other side. He sent them through that storm, getting to the other side. But here's the other promise. Jesus said, let us go cross. He had already told them, we're going to the other side. Yet in the midst, when a storm arose, getting to the other side, they began to doubt him. Don't doubt just because you hit the storm. Don't doubt in the darkness what God promised in the light. I want to encourage you with that today. You may be facing a storm right now. God's in it. Maybe take the time to say, God, what are you teaching me through this? Help me grow through this, because I know you've got a destination on the other side of the storm. God's got more work for you to do. So don't let this storm of today get you down. Jesus is there with you. Have that calmness that Jesus has and just sit back and say, you know what? I want to learn from this. We love you. We enjoy serving you. Look forward to seeing you and visiting with you. Feel free to let us know if you need anything. Have a blessed day.